Welcome to the Soulcery Podcast, your sacred space to delve into spiritual tools, topics, and practices that will illuminate your path of soul remembering and healing. I'm your host, Lígia Costa, a soul guide, alchemist, soul writing coach, and the creator of the Trust Pathway. I'm deeply grateful to have you here with me. Together, we will embark on a profound exploration of self-discovery and healing, unlocking the secrets that lie within. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Soulcery Podcast. Today we are delving into a deeply layered topic, okay? And it's the topic of the Sisterhood Wound. This wound runs silently through many of our lives and shapes how we connect with other women and how we view ourselves as well. If you ever felt like woman can't be trusted, or that you just get along better with men than women, or that female friendships are filled with judgment or competition or betrayal, this episode is for you. I will talk about the roots of this wound, how it manifests, and most importantly, how to heal. And the important thing before we even start with this conversation is to remember that it's not your fault. You might think that you've always been that way, that, since the times you went to school and you noticed, other girls picking up on you, or that you just didn't get along with the other girls. And you might think it's something to do with you, something wrong with you, that maybe you're just not likable to the female crew, right? But it's not your fault, These beliefs and these behaviors have been woven into our culture, our society, and even our DNA, okay? But we can heal it, and we start healing it by starting with ourselves. So although the term sisterhood wound started to become a bit trendy, I think, from 2020 onwards, this is actually not a modern creation. Its roots stretch back centuries and are very much in the collective history of women. And one of the most striking examples of this is the era of the witch hunts, a time when fear and survival pitted women against one another. And communities were taught to believe that exposing or accusing other women was the only way to protect themselves. So betrayal became a tool of survival, and trust was sacrificed to avoid persecution. So this era left deep scars on the collective psyche. Generations of women inherit this message that other women are not safe. Trust no one but yourself. And these wounds, compounded over time, became woven into the stories that were passed down through families, through cultural norms, and societal systems. Besides that, religious and patriarchal structures further amplified these divisions. Women were often positioned as rivals for male attention, for resources, or societal approval. And if you consider the archetypes that persist even today of the good girl versus the wild woman, or the mother versus the seductress, these labels created a false narrative, forcing women to choose sides instead of standing together. And in more recent history, the societal conditioning through media and through culture has reinforced this competition. And if you pay attention, the mean girl is very depicted in movies, right? The idea that there's only room for one. And the endless comparison of appearances and achievements perpetuate this scarcity mindset. And this kind of created this limiting belief, although unconscious, that amongst women there is not enough success. There is not enough love or worthiness to go around. And so we must compete against one another. So at its core, the sisterhood wound is a legacy of survival, of fear and scarcity. But it's not innate, it is learned. And because it was learned, it can be unlearned. Now, the thing that is important to remember is that the sisterhood wound doesn't always announce itself very loudly. It can be very subtle in its ways. There are subtle behaviors and thoughts that exist but create the same way patterns in our lives. So some of the ways that this wound manifests consciously or unconsciously in our lives is the distrust of women. And you might find yourself questioning the intentions of other women in your life, okay? Assuming that perhaps they are being too kind and that kindness is not sincere, or that their success diminishes your own. And maybe you've heard or you even said things like, I don't trust women, but without fully understanding where that belief stems from. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier. Maybe being bullied by other girls in school, or just witnessing this sort of behavior around you that didn't really sit well with you, but you were too young to even understand what was happening. And it created this understanding that you couldn't trust other women because it was dangerous to trust other women. Another common way that this manifests is when we start avoiding female friendships. And many women feel that they just get along better with men than other women. And while there is nothing wrong with having male friendships, the actual root of this avoidance stems from a fear of vulnerability with women. Because deep down, there might be an expectation that female relationships will inevitably lead to hurt. Another way, and this one I think is very obvious, is the competition and the comparison between women. Because the sisterhood wound thrives on the idea of scarcity, that there is only so much success and beauty or happiness to go around. And this often leads to comparing yourself to other women and feeling either superior or inferior. So instead of celebrating other women's wins and seeing it as possibilities for yourself, as in, oh, that girl achieved this or this happened to her, this can also happen to me. And I'm so happy for her, and I'm happy that she can show me the way of this possibility. But instead of having this mindset, we often feel threatened by their success, right? Another way that this wound manifests is through judgment and criticism. We all know that judgment, it is a protective mechanism, right? We often judge other people, the traits that we either have in ourselves and we are just projecting our flaws or what we perceive to be our flaws onto others. And so we judge that on others, but also traits that we have in ourselves that are dormant, that we don't have the courage to bring forward. And so we might judge someone for being too loud or too bold or too successful because deep down we can't find a way of showing that part of ourselves to others, right? And so we protect ourselves by judging others and by critiquing other women, whether it's their choices, their appearances, their behaviors. We might subconsciously distance ourselves from vulnerability and connection. Because again, we are putting the judgment. So we are creating this wall between us and other women, as if there is a huge gap or a huge difference between us and others. And it goes back to comparing and competition. So this is kind of tied up together with, the previous way that this wound manifests, because when you feel you have something to judge on others, especially other women, we then kind of have this urge to compete and compare and create this wall, okay? Another way this wound manifests is fear of betrayal. And this one I can really resonate with. Past experience of betrayal, well, through, gossip or rejection or broken trust, especially, and as we know, in school, girls can be really mean. And there is always this group of girls that they are the popular ones. And they tend to just look down on you, gossip, bully in some way. And I had loads of this when I was in school. And I do have this fear of betrayal and not trusting very, very, very present in my life still. And so when this happens, this fear prevents us from forming new and meaningful relationships. And I can see it in my adult friendships with other women. There's always that fear there lingering. And if something happens that, brings that rejection, that broken trust, it really triggers me, this fear of betrayal, even to this day, because this one can leave lasting imprints. And this can actually lead to the other way that this wound manifests, which is closing off in relationships, where the pain of past experiences can lead to self-protective behaviors. And I think, in a way, we all been through this, right? We might keep others at arm's length, or avoid intimacy, or avoid being vulnerable in friendships. And this can result in feelings of isolation and loneliness, and just making that belief stronger that others can't be trusted, women can't be trusted, right? Another way this wound manifests is when we internalize misogyny. Because sometimes the sisterhood wound shows up as internalized beliefs that women are too emotional, women are too sensitive, too dramatic, too complicated, right? And these stereotypes become barriers to forming authentic connections. And I'm not just saying that just us women think of that. There are many men that think this as well. As I said, this is a collective wound. This doesn't just affect women. This affects the collective, despite the gender. It's a wound that runs in our collective DNA, because so many of us had an ancestor that went through the witch trials, that went through this very historic and traumatic era, not just because they were accused of witchcraft, but also the persecutors, right? Also the communities that allowed, because that was the only way to survive, to accuse other women, accuse their own family members to save themselves. No wonder we still have this wounding in our collective energy, in our collective field. And obviously then culture just magnifies this. When we watch adverts, when we watch movies, women are depicted as too emotional, too dramatic, too complicated. So no wonder, as a collective, we have these stereotypes against women. And then another way that this wound can manifest is through superficial friendships. Relationships that just remain at surface level, that lacks depth, that lacks support, and support that we crave, but we are just too scared to go deeper. And this fear is rooted in the belief that closeness equals risk, right? Equals hurt, equals pain. And so we just keep it at surface level, just, hi, how you doing? Very casual friendship without sharing deep stories, without having actual friend that's there to listen, where we share our deepest fears and flaws and all of that without feeling judged. And so we keep it surface level because we don't trust other women, right? So the common thread in all these manifestations is this sense of separation, okay? From other women, but also from ourselves. Because the sisterhood wound disconnects us from our own inner wisdom and intuition and makes it difficult to trust not just others, but also our own judgment. But as I said earlier, these beliefs are not your fault. They were taught to us. We learned them. There were survival mechanisms in a world that often punished women for standing together. But just as these patterns were learned, they can also be unlearned. Because healing begins by understanding that the sisterhood wound isn't about who you are. It's about what you've been taught to believe. And with all forms of healing, this one also starts within, by doing the deep inner work to reconnect with yourself and reframe your relationships with others. And there are a few ways that you can do this deep inner work, which you might find it's very similar with other types of wounding, like the motherhood wound, like the inner child work. The basis is always the same because these are the bases for inner healing, right? So start by doing shadow work, for example. Shadow work, it's a very powerful technique that is used to go deeper on these woundings because it allows us to examine beliefs and fears that we carry about the wounding and in this particular case about other women. So ask yourself where these feelings come from. Were they learned through your family? Were they learned through society? Maybe past experiences in school, for example. When you bring these beliefs into the light, you can start to release them. Another way of reframing this wounding and working on this healing is forgiveness. Because forgiveness is powerful, not just for others, but for yourself. So try and let go of shame, the resentment, and the pain you've carried from past relationships. Healing your heart creates space for new and healthy connections. Another way is acceptance and setting healthy boundaries. Because acceptance means that you recognize that not every relationship is meant to last forever. You probably heard many times in the past saying that people come into our lives for a reason, for a season, or for a lifetime. Which means that not every relationship we have in our lives will last a lifetime. Some do, but others, they are coming just for a reason. And it might be a reason like we might need support, we might need to learn a lesson. And some people come into our lives to trigger us, to activate us in order for us to learn that lesson and move on in our growth journey. But it can also be support in a stage of our lives that we are really struggling. Others come for a season, and some examples of this are friendships that you had in school that you possibly then lost contact after you moved to either high school or to uni or you became an adult. So those friendships came for that season in our life. Other friendships come later in life. Some people say that they have friendships and then after divorce, because the couple is no longer there, they lose those friendships. So again, it was friendships that came for that season, but they are not staying for a lifetime. So accepting this cycle in relationships is really, really important. And then as well as understanding that it is okay to let go of connections that have reached a natural conclusion, because there will be There is no point forcing something to happen, pushing something to happen that already reached its expiring date. So just be mindful that it's okay to let go of that. And then setting boundaries in a form of self-love, allowing you to protect your energy while fostering trust and respect. And this is what setting healthy boundaries is. It's not putting up a wall, it's not separating yourself from others. Yes, it's protecting your energy, protecting your time, respecting yourself and your needs and your desires, but in a way that is communicated and fosters trust and respect and connection, deeper connection with others, okay? And if you'd like to know more about how to set healthy boundaries, I have a masterclass available on my website. I'll put the link in the show notes. But if you go onto my website, www.lígiacosta.co.uk, and click Work with Me and choose courses, the masterclass is there where I teach you what setting healthy boundaries is, where you are on your journey, what sort of boundary archetype are you. So it's a very, very in-depth masterclass that will help you really to understand more this, and it's only £22.22. I'll leave the link in the show notes. Another way you can work on healing the sisterhood wound is tuning into your intuition, because we know the sisterhood wound disconnects us from that side of ourselves, right? From our trust in ourselves and the trust that our intuition is real and that our intuition is guiding us. So try and work on rebuilding trust, right? By beginning with trusting yourself. Your intuition is your inner compass. It guides you towards people and relationships that align with your highest good. So start small. Start by listening to your gut feelings and honoring your needs without double guessing it, without worrying, without doubting it. Just start by listening to your gut feeling and how it makes you feel. Does it make you feel positive and calm and in peace and happy? Or does it feel like it's a contraction? It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like it's the right thing to do. See how that intuition is communicating with your body senses to let you know what is the path to take. And another way is self-love, right? Because self-love is the foundation of everything. And healing the sisterhood wound requires you to love yourself first. Because when you feel secure and safe in who you are, you naturally approach relationships with openness, with compassion and authenticity. So, what I would like you to take away from this conversation today is that the sisterhood wound is not a life sentence, right? It is a call to action. It is an invitation to heal centuries of pain that affects our collective story, and to rewrite that story not only for yourself but for the future generations. We get to contribute to a world where women uplift and trust and support one another instead of competing and being cattiness and doing the gossip, right? A world where sisterhood is a source of strength and not pain. And that world starts with you. By doing this inner work that I just talked about, by healing your hearts and stepping into relationships with love and trust, you become part of the change. And it's not about perfection as well, right? Don't wait to be the right moment, the right time, the right person. It is about progress. It is about intention and showing up for yourself and others. Before I love you and leave you, I'll pull a card from my Trust Journaling deck. And the card that I pulled is from the Reflection Suite. And the soul inquiry is, to whom or what am I giving my power away? To whom and what am I giving my power away? And the affirmation is, I acknowledge my own self-worth. And I love this. I absolutely love this affirmation and this soul inquiry. And you can also apply it for this conversation, right? When it comes to sisterhood wound, when it comes of not trusting other women, where are you giving your power away, right? I hope you found this conversation helpful, insightful, hopeful as well, and that you can start to be part of the change and start healing these centuries of pain that we are going through so that our future generations don't have to. Okay? Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for listening to the Soulcery Podcast and for holding space for this conversation. It is truly magical to be able to walk with you on this journey of soul healing and inner transformation. If you resonated with this episode and found it valuable, I would be grateful if you could leave a review on iTunes. Your feedback helps me reach more souls searching for guidance and healing. For more guidance and soul wisdom to support soul awakening women through the journey of alchemy, please visit my website www.lígiacosta.co.uk. Love and healing to all. See you on the next one.